All right, here we go. I am coming in today to talk about meal planning, how it can be helpful to be intentional, even in the midst of busy schedules, tight budgets, how getting intentional ahead of time and planning ahead can help us stay on track with eating healthy and keep things within our food budget. And we'll look at how next level, more than just getting it on paper, but actually having some things prepped ahead. So let's get to it. We're going to first talk about why it is helpful and it's worth the effort to do a little planning ahead. This is not my strong suit. It's an area I am working to grow, but I know because I'm on again, off again with actually planning ahead and getting a rough blueprint for the week, what we're going to eat, actually helps. It helps to save money because we are making a plan. Now, you can do meal planning in a way that actually has you spend more money. I've sat down and I've picked all these amazing sounding recipes, but then there's all these ingredients that I don't normally have on hand that I have to go buy them. And that's going to cost me more than I probably would have spent. This is one reason I talked about keeping it simple last week. So it depends on how you go about it. And so let's talk about ways that it actually can help you save money in the process. So we do, and we want to keep it healthy because this makes such a huge difference in our ability to function, to not burn out by fueling and nourishing our bodies well. By planning ahead, especially in busy times with busy schedules, that can help us stay on track. It can minimize food waste because we have a plan for all of the food that we brought home and it's not going to wind up throwing some away. It's less stress when I do have a plan. I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's 5 o'clock and I didn't take anything out. What are we doing? That's stressful and I don't like that. It's much nicer when I actually, okay, I know. I know, and now I took this out. This is what I'm making, and I have a plan. And it can save you time in the long run by cooking in bulk and freezing for the future. And these are some of the things that we're going to talk about with the prepping things ahead. Now I've had people say that because they have, when we have kids that are now, they're old enough and they're involved in a lot of things that can have us on the go a lot during the week. And sometimes you're going to be home for dinner, but getting home like too late to start the dinner. If we have something ready to go ahead of time, sometimes we're not going to be home for dinner. And these are the times when we can wind up relying on the fast food. So is there a way around that? Well, let's think about it and talk about it. There's this thing called cook once, eat twice, and that's basically you build into your plan where you're cooking a meal, but you're not cooking like just enough for that one meal. You're cooking it with the intention of having leftovers so it at least can make one or more other meals. I mentioned this last week in doing a roast chicken. We can do one roast chicken and have it make sometimes 3 or 4 meals here because there's just two of us. You might need to actually make more than one chicken for a larger family. But then those, the meat from those chickens, whatever it be, 2 or 3, can stretch across multiple meals. So you're cooking with intention to reuse things later in the week. Planning freezer meals. We have a family in our life group that needed some assistance due to some medical and different issues going on in the family. And you know how you make a meal train list wasn't going to work very well because of how far out in the country they lived for people to each night of the week make a meal and drive it out to them. So what we did instead was I found a good list. I think we made actually 10 meals. You may not want to make that many at one time. Maybe you just want to do 5 for a week, maybe just 2 or 3 for the week. But I found some recipes that we could put together into containers for freezing these meals. And then all the mom had to do was take in either some of them were for like a sheet pan meal, you just dump it out onto the sheet pan. Some were dump into a skillet, some were dump into a crock pot and then cook all day. And that was a really, really great. And my husband came up with the idea. It was amazing. I would have never thought of that. And that helped them so much during that season to have those meals already prepped and ready to cook. They weren't already cooked. They still had to be cooked, but she could pull out one for the crock pot if she's going to be at appointments all day and then just have the meal ready when they get home. So that's what freezer meals are. There's different ways to go about doing that. You can have some that are already cooked and you're just pulling them out and reheating them as well. Let's see, I mentioned the cook once, eat twice. There's batch cooking. That's where you're intentionally cooking, like say, I'm going to have 3 different ground beef meals this week. I'm going to have a couple of different chicken meals this week. And so up ahead of time, you're going to prepare the ground beef and you're going to prepare the chicken and then have them ready to go for those meals. That would be batch cooking. I talked about freezer meals, crock pot meals, and these are fantastic if you've done the freezer meals, and then some of those are for the crock pot meals. And if you have more time in the mornings, maybe you don't need to do that. You just have all your ingredients, put them all in the crock pot, and then run out on your busy day. And when you get home for dinner time, that's ready to go. Crock pot meals are awesome. Now, another idea I had, and I do this sometimes, is I wish I would did this more when we had the kiddo and that we didn't eat so much fast food when we were running around to sports all the time. But to make, you know how you can make your lunch and take it to have with you at work? Well, you can do the same thing for dinner. If you're going to be out, you have kids in sports, in music lessons, in theater. What are some other, so many things that we can have our kids involved in, but usually they're going to be in the evenings. That's just going to make it hard to be at home and cook. And sometimes you're going to get home too late past dinner time. And this is when we rely on stopping at the fast food, right? So what if you made and had prepped ahead a picnic style dinner for those nights that everyone has their food ready to go, and when you finish the practice, when you finish the lesson, whatever the activity is, you've got your dinner and you can eat it, and you don't have to go and get the stuff that is not good for you and your family. So these are just some ideas, and I would love to hear your ideas because this is an area I'm trying to grow in. Do you do freezer meals? Do you do cook once, eat twice? Do you intentionally plan to have leftovers for future meals in what you make? Do you have a crock pot? Do you utilize it very often? I use mine at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times. Have you done that where you actually plan ahead and take a dinner with you so that you don't have to stop at McDonald's? And I have, I try to do this also for traveling and prep something to have in the car that I can eat so I have something good and nourishing while I'm on the road and not having to stop at McDonald's or Dairy Queen, the things that are usually available traveling across Texas or something like that. How do you get intentional and plan ahead? And do you ever use some of these practices to have things prepared ahead of time? Reverse meal planning is more how I tend to do it. And I'm making a meal planning template. So it would have to do the reverse meal planning. Basically, you are planning based on the things that you have already, or even the things that, you're going to have to replenish them, the things that you typically keep in your pantry, in your fridge, in your freezer. Also, you can plan based on what's in season. And this is another way to save money. Like with cabbage, when cabbage is in season, it's super cheap. And actually, cabbage tends to be super cheap year round because it keeps well, but definitely when it's in season. What else, what's something? Oh, your summer squashes are in season. They're going to be more readily available and also less expensive than getting some squashes in the winter time that had to travel from a long distance. And they're also not going to be as fresh and have a lot more nutrient loss and things like that. So you don't want to eat those during the winter unless you're doing frozen. We talked about that. So I tend to do that. I tend to have the things that I get on a regular basis, and then I look at what I have, and then I plan out how I'm going to use that this week. So I'm making a template for that would have the page to say, okay, what's in my freezer what's in my fridge that needs to get used this week. You can jot all that down on the one page, and then you have the week where you could say, okay, on Monday we're going to do the chicken, on Tuesday we're going to make tacos, and then it would have the shopping list that you where you can fill in the blanks of what you need to replenish, things that you need to add in based on your plan. That's what I'm making. So if you would like me to share that when I have it made, drop a comment down below. Do you plan? Do you tend to be more like me and fly by the seat of your pants? Do you want to grow in your ability to plan ahead and prep ahead to make your meal times run more smoothly and not have to rely on getting fast food, ordering pizza, and things like that quite so often, to really grow in being a better steward financially, a better steward nutrition wise, because we're being able to feed our bodies well. How is that going for you guys? I've mentioned already that I don't do this very well and am working to grow and get better at it. So I am pretty sure that there are folks that are good at planning, and I bet you have some good tips and advice that you can offer to help everyone else that is trying to do better and to grow. So I am going to end it there and just say I want to hear from you. So make sure you comment below, say hello, toss out your questions, give your tips on the things that you do well and things that have worked well for you. And what methods that I mentioned do you use? And are there some other things that I didn't think of to mention? So that's it. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day. I look forward to hearing from you.